Welcome back to Grammy's Vegan Kitchen. Today we're going to be making a Tuscan tofu. If you don't like tofu, you could substitute a buttered bean, but let's go ahead. Today we're going to make it with tofu. You'll be using, obviously, tofu. We will be making a cashew cream out of cashews. There are alternatives that you'll see in the recipe that's with this video. If you don't want to make the cashew cream, you could use a coconut milk if you would prefer. We'll be adding nutritional yeast. We'll have a little cornstarch on our tofu. We're going to be using two different forms of tomatoes. We've got cherry tomatoes, about a cup of that, and we're going to be using sun-dried tomatoes. About a small jar of those are probably about a fourth to half a cup. It will be finished off with some spinach and a nice little touch of basil at the end. So let's get cooking and see how it goes. Our first step in this process is to go ahead and get the tofu drained and pressed. My favorite press is this Tofu Express, and it eliminates having to weight tofu down with paper towels and books and such, which if you don't have a tofu press, does it. It's a spring-loaded press. I put it in there, and immediately you'll see that it's starting to drain the tofu or press the liquid out. Now for a period of time, so that while we prepare some other ingredients, and that will allow the tofu to get most of the moisture out. We'll set that aside. I'm soaking the cashews in boiling water and for about 5 minutes or so, while I prepare some other ingredients for the Tuscan tofu. If you do not want to use cashews, you can at this point skip this process and use a can of coconut milk, and you'll still have a wonderful creamy dish at the end. So it's your choice, a little variety that makes some interest to the food. We're going to be dredging the tofu in a mixture of flour, nutritional yeast, and salt. I want you to know that one of the salts that I really prefer is the real salt. It's mined in Utah, and I have found it to be super good for cooking and just for even table use. The one thing I've discovered is I think it's free of plastics, which if we get sea salt anymore, we're getting so many microplastics that I really prefer this. I'm adding the 4 tablespoons of cornstarch, 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, and a half a teaspoon of the real salt. And I'll mix that together, and this is what we're going to be dredging our tofu in. It's kind of the seasoning before we brown the tofu in our skillet. So you want to mix that up really well. Okay, our tofu has been pressed, and you'll see that I have quite a bit of liquid that's going to be coming off of that tofu. So it's a good thing we did it. Even though I bought extra firm tofu, there's still quite a bit of liquid, and I like to take that off when I am frying up something. I'm going to take the tofu and I'm going to cut it into some triangles. I like to take each triangle that I've had and cut it into thirds. And that's about a quarter of an inch, I guess, something like that. It doesn't have to be exact. This is a dish that has typically been made with chicken. So, you know, chicken isn't going to be all uniform pieces, and neither is our tofu. So we'll take the tofu now that we've cut it. We're going to put it in our cornstarch nutritional yeast mixture. I'm just going to get it nice and covered. We're going to fry that up in our skillet. We'll want to have our oil getting warm at this time. We want to have the oil nice and hot so that when we add the tofu, it immediately starts to cook, and we'll be cooking them for about 4 minutes aside. I'll be adding about 3 tablespoons of oil to my skillet. It's best if you could use a non-stick skillet for this, because tofu will have a little tendency to stick to your pan. And then I'm going to get my heat probably about medium high would be good. My oil is nice and hot. It's not starting to sizzle yet, but it is definitely hot. So it's time to add the tofu. I'll carefully add the tofu because it might splatter as it goes in. There it goes. We'll be cooking the tofu for about 4 minutes aside, getting it nice and brown. I'm going to get the water started to boil so that when we're ready to do the sauce and put the dish together, our pasta will be done. This angel hair pasta only takes 4 minutes. If you're using a different pasta like a fettuccine or rice, you'll want to allow time for that. But this is going to not take long at all, 4 minutes. The tofu's been cooking on one side for about 4 minutes, so I want to go in and carefully turn it over. Don't know if you can see how beautiful brown that is. That's what we want. We want to carefully flip it. Okay, the tofu's been cooking 4 minutes on one side, and then I flipped it, and 4 minutes on the other. It's ready to come out of the pan. You'll notice that I have paper towels on my plate, and that's to absorb any extra oil from the tofu. My tofu is now on my plate with the paper towels, and which is absorbing the oil from the tofu. And we'll be using the same pan to make the sauce in. So really an easy cleanup meal. We'll set that tofu aside and we'll be adding it to the sauce later on. My cashews have been soaking in that boiling water and it's time to drain them. I'll drain those nicely. And there we go. As we begin the sauce, we're going to be taking 4 cloves of garlic and mincing them, and 1 shallot and slicing it into small pieces. Okay, I'm adding the shallots and the garlic, and I'll be sauteing that for about a minute while it just starts to soften and just that wonderful smell. There's nothing like the smell of onions and garlic. I'm now going to add our tomatoes that we have sliced. We had about a cup of tomatoes. I like to cut those cherry tomatoes in half. It just makes it cook down better. And then I have my sun-dried tomatoes, about 4 ounces of that. And we're going to saute that for a minute or so and let that get nice and blistered. Those tomatoes will blister a little bit as they get hot. And that's exactly what we're looking for. So we'll let that just simmer for a bit. Okay, as my tomatoes start to blister, I'm going to add my tomato paste, about a tablespoon of the tomato paste. And I would like to add my seasoning now at this point. It's the oregano and red pepper flakes. I used about 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. If you like your food spicy, you could add a little bit more, maybe up to 1/2 teaspoon. Those are simmering in the pan for about 3 to 5 minutes. And like I said, we want to get those tomatoes blistering so that they're just ready to add with the sauce. I'll be adding broth to this and some nutritional yeast. I like the nutritional yeast. It adds a little cheesy taste to this without putting cheese in because that's not something we're going to do. You'll notice I'm not using any salt. I think it's important to let people salt their own food. There's so many different wonderful flavors already in this dish. I don't think we need more salt. Personally, I don't want salt, but if you have your guests that you're serving it to or your family member likes to salt food, let them go ahead. But we're not adding it to the cooking dish. It blistered so well, and now I'm going to sprinkle my nutritional yeast and my cup or so of vegetable broth and let that just simmer really well. Let that get nice and hot. And we're going to also be adding our cashew cream and spinach. Look at that. Does that look great? Okay, our sauce has been cooking now for about 5 minutes or so, and it's getting thickened. The spinach is starting to wilt. Those tomatoes have blistered, and it's turned a beautiful, beautiful color. It's all I can do but keep from wanting to get a taste of it right now. I am going to be adding the tofu now that we cooked earlier, and we're going to get it in the sauce so it can start to warm up with the sauce and be covered in that wonderful, wonderful gravy sauce. At this point, if you were not using tofu and were instead using the beans, this is when you would be adding the beans to your sauce after the sauce has started to simmer with this spinach wilting. But we want to make sure those tofu pieces are fully immersed in the sauce. And at this point, we can just go ahead and put the lid on and let that simmer for a bit while we get our pasta prepared. Water's boiling. It's time to add the pasta. This pasta cooks for only 4 minutes, so dinner's going to be ready soon. I'm going to have 4 or 5 leaves of basil, which I'm going to make just some little ribbons of the basil to add to our sauce as it simmers. As it's been simmering, I'm going to sprinkle my basil slivers right on top. I'm going to let this continue to simmer with the tofu in there and waiting for the pasta. I have got my pasta here, and now I'm going to plate my dish. Be sure you get some pieces of tofu in it. It looks so great. With this dish, I like to add a squeeze of lemon at the very final end when I'm ready to serve. This looks wonderful, and it smells fabulous. Mm. Mm. It is fantastic. If you make the dish, let me know in the comments below, and be sure and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.